All right, moving on. Let's go on to data tables. This is part of that what-if analysis I want to cover this morning. Data tables are a quick way to test an assumption in a model that you have. I got a very simple model here. I'm trying to calculate an interest rate or a payment given an annual percentage, number of years for the loan, and the amount of the loan. And right now, given those numbers, it stands at like $337, thereabouts. Well, I can make that. I can go down to the bank today, sign the papers, get that loan, or I could wait 6 months or something like that because I think interest rates may go down or they may go up. And so I'm thinking, well, what would happen if they would go up? So I could say, okay, instead of waiting, let's say I wait 6 months and then it goes, so this is, I could put this at 5%. Let's say it jumps up to 5%. So that says that it goes up to 344. And see, the first one was, see, I already forgot what the first number was. So then I say, well, I'll put that number in here. That's like 344.71. And I'll go back to 4% here. And it went down to 329.05 and so on, right? So I could fill that table in like that. It's going to take me a few minutes to do that, and that's fine, but I'm only going to do a few numbers like that. But I can test out what kind of effect it would have if the interest rates went up and down. Now there's a quicker way to do this, and I can do a much bigger range of numbers. You create a little table, and I'm going to start this off with 4%, and then 4.25%, and then I'm just going to fill this down like this, build my table like this. Okay. So that's easy enough to do. And I already got way more numbers than I started with before, and it only took me a second to set that up. And then at the top of the next column, I want to point back to the cell in the model that I'm interested in tracking, seeing what happens to when I try these different assumptions. So that's my payment over here. Okay. And it's going to do literally the same thing that I just went through. It's going to take this 4% here. Well, we'll show it how to do it in a second. It's going to put it in the model here. It's going to see what number comes up here. It's going to copy it to here. Then it's going to take 4.25, put into here, grab this number, copy to here, and so on. So to finish this up, highlight both columns, including the headers, like that. Okay? Then go to the Data tab on the ribbon. And then you're going to want to go to What If Analysis, wherever that is on your ribbon, and pick Data Table. I have a column of inputs that I want to test, so I pick that second option there, or second argument, and then I show it where it should substitute those numbers back into, and so that would be right there. And then I just say OK, and I'm done. So now I can see this. Okay, well today, let's say the interest rate is 4.75%. So 6 months from now, it can maybe drop down to that number, 329, or it could maybe go up to 385, something like that. So I can use that to get some idea of what could happen if my estimate of what the interest rate in 6 months is going to be is off. All right. Okay. Questions so far here? All right. Now then, if we can do more with it, we can actually do two inputs. So I've got the same basic model here. I'm calculating the monthly payment, given an interest rate, number of years for the loan, and the amount of the loan. Well, in this case, if the interest rates go down, maybe I want to borrow more money, or if interest rates go up, maybe I want to, borrow a little less money. And so I'm curious about, what my monthly payment could be under, that two sets of conditions there. So again, I could type in these two numbers here, 6%, $75,000, get the number here, copy it over to here, and so on. But to fill in this table is going to take quite a while to do, right? Well, with the data table, I'm pretty much done. So I just set up my column of inputs, which will be the different loan amounts, and just on a whim, I put them in reverse order just to show you that a data table literally takes these numbers, substitutes them in here. So you can put these in any order you want, doesn't matter. And then I did the interest rates like this too. Usually we'll do it either in ascending order, descending order, because then we can use autofill and we can complete the table no matter very little time. All right. In the upper left-hand corner here, you need to tell it what cell you want to track. So again, it's my monthly payment. And I've set the thing up. I highlight everything, including the row and column headers, like that. Then I go back into what-if analysis, data table. My row of inputs. Well, here's my row of inputs. These are the interest rates. Where do interest rates get input into the model? They get done right there. My column of inputs are the various amounts of money that I can think about borrowing. And that would go into the model right there. And then I'm done. And there's the various amounts. Okay. So if I were to borrow $75,000 at 6%, my monthly payment would be $833 and so on and so forth. All right? Now, the reason why I have this highlighted is to remind myself that if I don't use these day in and day out, it's easy to confuse what goes in the row and what goes in the column inputs. And if you're lucky, it'll come up with big nonsense numbers for you so that you know immediately you made a mistake on them. But if, in all cases, you should always check at least one value to make sure that you set up things right. And the easiest thing to do is just look at what's currently in the model. And I've got like 4% and $45,000, which is a payment of $455.60. And so this is rounded off to the nearest dollar, $456. This number here should match what's currently in your model. If it doesn't, you've set the thing up wrong. So it's an easy check to make sure that you've done everything right. Okay. Now, the other thing you can do with this, let's say you have a budget and you can't afford more than a $625 a month payment. So I could highlight the cells in the table here. I could go to conditional formatting again. And I can say highlight rules where it's greater or less than in this case. And I pick a number. What did I say? 625? I don't know. Whatever. 625. Like that. And I just pick the green color. So those are the combinations of interest rates and amounts that I can afford with my budget $650 or $625 a month. Okay? So you can do this sort of stuff. All right, now, one last thing you need to know about this. It's using yet another kind of formula notation here. But in this case, it really does. There's not much you can do about it. It's just the way it does things. What it doesn't mean, though, is that you can't come in here and delete a cell. It won't let you do that. Or try to change a cell in here. It treats this whole thing now, this data table, as a logical whole. So if you want to do any changes, you have to get rid of the whole table and start all over. Okay. All right. And then lastly, a little bit of review here. This is called a data table. The thing that we did a couple of weeks ago where you had the drop-down filters and all that sort of stuff, that's just called a table or a table with filters. And then the other thing here, this, I'll often refer to this as a data region. So those are three distinct things. So try to keep those straight in your head, right? This is a region, the thing like, well, okay, that's a region. That's called a table or a table with filters. And then this is called a data table. All right? Okay. So, on the next page, a practical exercise, a useful exercise. You're a student in some mythical class. It's down to the last week or so of the semester. You have one exam left to take, and you're wondering what your grade's good. If I do really well on the exam, what's going to be my grade? If I, completely bomb on the exam, what could it do to my grade? A classic what-if analysis. So you set up the model, and then you could type in different scores here, and you can see what you got, or we could do a more efficient way to create a data table and check that different range of numbers to see what it's going to do to my grade. So there's that one. Then the second model. Same scenario, but you're a little bit earlier in the semester. And you've got a quiz left and an exam left, and you're trying to decide whether you should study hard for the exam or the quiz or both or neither one. So again, you want to test different ranges of quiz scores and exam scores. So you need to create a data table for that. And then when you get the second one done, use conditional formatting to show your final average of 80 or above. Okay? So go ahead and get started on that, and I'll come around and give you some help.